Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Assembly Nashville. It's great to see everybody on this overcast day, but it's not too chilly, not too warm. We're going to have a great time. We are going to sing some songs, hear some great speakers, and overall have a good time celebrating life.
Do we need to mention this is our 4th anniversary?
Oh no, I forgot our anniversary.
Yeah.
I'm in big trouble.
Or did I blow a surprise?
No, I just had a moment where it's like, you know what? This is our 4th anniversary. This is the 4th year now, starting November, of Sunday Assembly. So, yeah, hey, high five. Woo! All right, yay us. Well, we're going to sing a song first that was actually written by Stephen, and you all have heard it before, probably. We'd love for you guys if you can stand up and just clap and move along with us if you'd like, or else... well, yeah, we'll get started. So come on, join us for this new song called New Congregation.
Cool.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's okay to clap along.
Our customs and our creeds, and all the nationalities we claim. We're sisters and we're brothers, it's time we all agree, but not as different as we are the same. We don't have forever, let's all come together. Today is the day, this is the place. We are the new congregation. We'll keep all the best, let go of the rest. This is a true celebration of life, the one that we know we have. So let's try to make it the best we can. Join in the song, this is where you belong. We are the new congregation. There's a welcome for the misfit, helping hands for those in need, and revelry to keep our spirits high. No deity, no doctrine, we're letting our hearts lead to the sweet here and now, not by and by. We're denouncing the division of yesterday's religion. Today is the day, this is the place. We are the new congregation. We'll keep all the best, let go of the rest. This is a true celebration of life, the one that we know we have. So let's try to make it the best we can. Join in the song, this is where you belong. We are the new congregation. We're breaking down the walls that separate us and finding out a better life awaits us. Today is the day, this is the place. We are the new congregation. We'll keep all the best, let go of the rest. This is a true celebration of life, the one that we know we have. So let's try to make it the best we can. Join in the song, this is where you belong. We are the new congregation.
Nice job, everybody. Stay standing. We are the Unnamed Assembly Band. You never see the same lineup twice, and we have some amazing people come in and out. And today we have a very special guest, someone who's been coming to Sunday Assembly for a while now. You may not know him, but he's toured the world, has gold records, platinum records. He's a Hall of Fame legendary country. He's awesome, and he's here with us today. The amazing pianist is going to join us for the song. Give it up for Mr. Mason Embry. But we've already got a pianist to play, so I'm going to give him cowbell.
1, 2. Say, can I get a little more monitor if you got it up there for the vocal things?
Sing with me. I wanna jump, but I'm afraid I'll fall. I wanna holler, but the joint's too small. Young man rhythm's got a hold of me too. I got the rockin' pneumonia and the boogie woogie blue. Want some other baby that ain't all. I wanna holler, but the joint's too small. Pneumonia and the boogie woogie blue. Want some loving, baby, that ain't all. I wanna kiss her, but she's way too small. Young man of rhythm's got a hold of me too. I got the rockin' pneumonia and the boogie woogie blue. Wanna there we go. And a boogie woogie blue. Baby, come on now, I'm hurrying home. I know she's leaving, but she's taking too long. Young man of rhythm's got a hold of me too. I got the rockin' pneumonia and the boogie woogie blue. All right. The Unnamed Assembly Band with Mr. Mason Embry. Give it up. All right. You all can go ahead and have a seat. And that voice is in your head. We want to welcome today our host. You know him and love him. He was here on the very first Sunday Assembly, one of the original founding people. So give it up for the wonderful Mr. David Lyle.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Coming across? Great. Super. So, yeah, 4 years ago this week, people, we are 4 years old. So that's something worth celebrating. Welcome to Sunday Assembly. We are a secular congregation that celebrates life. Our mission is to help every person live life to the fullest. Our vision is a Sunday Assembly in every village, city, and town that wants one. And our motto is live better, help often, and wonder more, people. We are radically inclusive. So, yay for us. We've made it 4 years, so something must be going down right. So it was about November 6, 2013, that I got in the car to drive to the airport and pick up Sanderson Jones and Pippa Evans, who maybe, I think, a number of you have met, because since then, Sanderson has been here twice. He was so taken with all of you people here in Nashville. And so I get to the airport, and I pick them up, and I open the Tennessean, and across the banner headline on the bottom half of the Tennessean, it has a photo of Sanderson and Pippa. Jones and Evans to open atheist church. I wasn't so sure about the headline, but it sure got a lot of good press. So it had all started a few months just before that. In January of 2013, Sanderson and Pippa had launched the first Sunday Assembly in London. And the first time they did it, 300 people showed up. So they figured, maybe we're not the only people who are looking for a chance to get together and celebrate life, and in a secular setting where we're not asked to affirm things that we just can't in good conscience affirm. But where we can get together and think of ways of maybe doing service projects and helping other people and living life as fully as possible. So they organized it, and they did it again in February. And pretty soon, people were reading about this in the press. So I think it's probably about July that I saw something on an online press. I think maybe the Guardian newspaper about this new atheist. Of course, the media loved it. They were calling it the atheist church. So big headline. So I definitely clicked on that and read about it. And it turns out, and they were saying, hey, you know what? If you people out there who kind of Sanderson and was saying that Pip and I realized that we were both having the same idea about the same time. And then we decided we better hurry and do it before someone else beat us to it. So they collaborated, and they got this project going. And they said, and we suspect there are other people out there in other cities thinking of something similar. And I thought, well, that sounds like me. So, and it said, in order to make this happen in your town, we will come and help you do it sometime in November of 2013 in the U.S. and Canada. All you have to do is hire a room, maybe get some music, some kind of music going. It can be a recording. It can be karaoke. Let's see. You need a speaker. You better go out and find yourself a good speaker who will interest everyone. And press contacts. Make sure you contact all the press and so media contacts and all this stuff. So I figured, great, we got to do this in Nashville, right? So I set up a Google forum for potential organizers to get together and talk about, make plans. And I set up an Eventbrite page where people could go by the hundreds and sign up and say that yes, they would attend. And I told Nashville that there was going to be a Sunday Assembly launch in November 2013. So what could go wrong, right? And then I emailed Sanderson and said, okay, I've done all this stuff. And he emailed back. He said, well, usually people, have been contacting me first before, but okay, that's good. And but he definitely said, Nashville, Bible, buckle the Bible belt. Sounds good to me. So a couple weeks go by, I'm kind of working to organize and pretty much alone, but with the wonder of the web, we started making connections. Just the way most of you, I think, in this room probably connected with Sunday Assembly, probably maybe through Meetup or Facebook or something on the web, And so the wonders of the web is I started meeting people in Nashville who were awesome and amazing and really good at organizing. And so within a couple weeks, I had become a good buddy of Landry Butler, who is not here. Where is Landry? Lori, where is Landry? He's on his way. Okay, great. That's just like our Landry. But he was dead reliable. When it was time to look for a venue, so Landry and I go down to 5 Points in East Nashville, and we find this great venue. It was beautiful. It was this kind of converted, stark, small warehouse with sticky floors from beer, and it could barely seat 100 people, but it was amazing. So we forked out several $100s in our cash, hoping that maybe people would donate at the first service to help pay us back. And then I thought, okay, we gotta have music. This is Nashville, man. You gotta have music. So I started calling everybody I knew who played an instrument, and getting on the phone with them, because I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And the phone would ring, and I'd hear about what was happening with the music, and I'd pick it up, and by the second or third week, I realized every time that phone rang, it was Adam Newton, man. And I thought, oh, Adam is on top of the music. He is really helping damp out the fires with the divas, and keeping everybody happy. And he had arranged for a place for everyone to meet and rehearse at the Dennisons, Deb and Dan, who were right here, been here. Ray and Deb, who've been here right here from the beginning, and gave the band a place to rehearse. And so it started coming together, because there were amazing people out there if you could just connect with them, who also just want to celebrate life, man. So meanwhile, 4 years go by. That's a long time. A lot has gone down. And I don't know about you, but from my point of view, a lot of it is really bad. Global warming, it's getting worse, not better. Don't even mention politics. I don't want to talk about the election. But we've got each other, man. If we didn't have each other, I think I'd be in a mental hospital, okay? But you know what? If I was in a mental hospital with you, I'd be okay. Because at least we could still celebrate life together, So that's right, it may yet happen, that's right. So on that note, I want to hand it over we're going to start celebrating life, man. And so I want to recognize Don Thomason to give us a reading.
Thank you. And I was one of those people, by the way, who saw something on the web about Sunday Assembly back 2-3 years ago when I was living in Kentucky, and saying, this is interesting. I wonder if there's one in Nashville, knowing that I was trying to move here. Lo and behold, there was. When I moved here, I found you. Okay. The reading is Continuities by Walt Whitman. Nothing is ever really lost, or can be lost. No birth, identity, form, no object of the world, nor life, nor force, nor any visible thing. Appearance must not foil, nor shifted sphere confuse thy brain. Ample are time and space, ample the fields of nature. The body, sluggish, aged, cold, the embers left from earlier fires, the light in the eye grown dim, shall duly flame again. The sun, now low in the west, rises for mornings and for noons continual. To frozen clods ever the spring's invisible law returns, with grass and flowers and summer fruits and corn.
Thank you, Don. That was great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we're in for a treat this morning. Okay. We needed to bring up, with me hosting, we need to bring up the IQ quotient around here a little bit. So the Wonder More committee got together, and we found this really special guy. It's James Crow, MD. And James is going to be speaking to us about some of his research and things he's learned about life through that research and through life itself, I think. James is director of the Vaccine Center of Vanderbilt Vaccine Center, where he directs not one but two of the core laboratories doing research. And let's just say that he's been published in over 150 high-tone journals, which is about 150 more than most of us in the room, including me. And he's been voted by election. He's been elected to a good half dozen distinguished College of Scientists. And I'm guessing that maybe one that he's especially pleased about was in 2014, he was elected a member of the National Academy of Medicine. So I want you to put it together and welcome our friend James Crow.
Wow, well, good morning. Yeah, and thank you for having me. I'm really humbled that you would have me here, and it's so fun to learn about you. My wife and I were just talking this morning about a relative we have, a relative and friend who's lonely and is somewhat isolated. I think that's very common in Nashville. Nashville's blowing up. It's a very exciting place, but also a lot of lonely people. And we were talking about, well, sometimes you have to be the friend, or as a group, you have to make the community. You can't just have someone come to you and say, we have a community, here it is. And it seems like you've made the community and you're being the friend to this place. So I commend you. And being involved in various groups, it's a lot of work to have a place and people show up. So your leadership and all those that are contributing, I commend you, because it's amazing to see the sweet spirit here. I'm going to share with you today some of our work, and I'm just the cheerleader here. I talk about things and I sit in a lot of meetings, but it's actually other people who do the work, and I'm going to show you their picture along the way. I trained as a physician. I'm a pediatrician, and I ended up studying the immune system. Now, like many of you, when I was a kid, I had obsessive compulsive tendencies, and I liked to collect things. So lots of seashells, and I had a stamp collection, and I sort of wanted one of everything. And I found myself in a good place because the immune system is pretty complicated, and I can spend my entire life collecting one of everything in the immune system, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So next slide. Oh, here's my button. So just to remind you what the immune system is, the immune system's all over your body. The immune system essentially lives in your blood, and wherever there is blood in your body, there's an immune system, which is everywhere. So it's this information highway that's trafficking around, and you can prick your skin anywhere, and the blood is there. Now, the blood has, trigger happy. The blood has various things in it. If you look in a microscope, there are lots of different shapes and sort of colors of cells if you stain them. The red blood cells carry the oxygen, which you need to survive, but the white blood cells, that's what constitutes the immune system. So in every drop of blood, there's millions of these cells. And for someone who's sort of a collector, I wondered, are they all the same, or are there different kinds in there? And that's a lot of what scientists do. They like to classify things and collect them. And we know there are millions of them, but they have to do so many things, like fight various infections that come along. They inhibit cancer and that sort of thing. So there must be many kinds of them. So on the next slide, when I started in this business maybe 25 years ago, we did things with pipetters and sort of one by one. But now in the age of big data, we have tools that are amazing. And some of the most important tools came out of the Genome Project. So 20 years ago, people said, what if we cataloged all the genes in people? And so engineers built amazing machines where you could put the DNA from people or animals or anywhere in and see all of the letters there. And so we have enormous capability to catalog what's in your body. And so the question is, what should we do with all that capability? So on the next slide, one of the things that's going on in medical research now, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is called personalized medicine or precision medicine. And the idea is we're all different from each other genetically. And so if we knew all of our genes all over the world, we could figure out why you respond well and I don't respond well to an infection or a condition. So there's a lot of emphasis on the differences between us. But it turns out the differences between us are only about 1% of our genes are different. 99% is exactly the same amongst all of us. And I think that's sort of two ways to look at our differences. Are we 1% different or 99% the same. And genetically, we're 99% the same. And so the idea was that, I'm getting too, maybe I should just not touch. So I'll let Jeremy run the slides here. So we can use these tools, and the question is, what kind of numbers should we study? So on the right in the next slide, what a lot is going on is to take millions of people and study the 1% that's different. A version of this, you could go to 23andMe and for $99 and get your sort of ancestry DNA, but for $1,500, we can get your entire DNA, every sequence of DNA in your body, and people are predicting in medical care this is going to happen. Your genome, someone's going to offer to do your genome for $100 at some point, or your child or your cord blood or something. So this is coming. We're going to know the whole genome. But we've been doing studies more to the left here, and that is, what if we just took one person and studied to the very bottom all the information in that person, and given that we're 99% the same, we ought to be able to understand the answers to many of the world's most important problems by studying very few people, but studying them in depth. And we did not coordinate the reading today with my thinking, but I also chose to read you something from Walt Whitman. So, this is the beginning of Leaves of Grass. Is probably one of the most seminal literary works in American literature, Song of Myself. And he writes, I celebrate myself and sing myself for what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. My tongue, every atom of my blood, he says. I mean, this is the 1800s, formed from this soil, this air. So Whitman writes an entire book, and it's somewhat tedious to get through the entire poem in one setting, but the idea that knowing himself was an example of knowing all people, and that's sort of what it's about. And it departs from Western literature in which heroes were the subject. So you had the Iliad and the Odyssey about a singular heroic person, and Whitman says, well, I may not be heroic, but I'm like you, and if I know myself, that self is, we share. I think that's what the poem is about. And that's what we're trying to do with the immunology, study individuals and generalize that out to everybody. So in the next slide, we started calling these N equals 1. What if instead of asking statisticians how many hundreds of people do we need to study, we said, well, what if we fully knew one person? We ought to be able to get the answer to some of the most pressing problems. So in the next slide, I study the immune system. Now, I mentioned the Human Genome Project. The Human Genome Project turns out was pretty easy because there's only 20,000 genes in the human genome, which at the time seemed enormous, and we spent $3 billion 20 years ago, and most of the genetic scientists in the world were contributing to this, thousands of people. But now it's easy. We can do it really in one day and use. So the technology has moved along. A dirty little secret in the Genome Project was we didn't really study the immune system genes because it was too complicated, it was too big. And this is because in the immune system, you use combinations of genes. And the way I think about this is sort of like cards of hands. So you've all played card games. So a traditional card deck has 52 cards, I guess. Well, you have 51 variable genes to make antibodies in your body. So that's a very similar number. But there's a second set of genes called diversity genes and a third called joining genes. And when you make an antibody that kills something like a virus, you pick one V, one D, one J, and you put them all together. So you get these combinations of genes. And so the immune system, by combining, gets an enormous diversity. And by doing that, you're basically ready for anything. So we know that the immune system gene, by combinations and mutating and so on, is a trillion times the size of the genome. And so people say, well, we'll never know that. That's unknowable. So in the next slide, why is it like this? So this is just a three-dimensional structure of an antibody, which is the protein in your body that would kill a virus. And all the variability is at the tips of these little loops. So you sort of have a framework or a structure, and then you riff on it. It's kind of like jazz. You have a central theme, which is your antibody on the tips. You can make an unlimited, infinite, or seemingly infinite number of combinations and shapes, and that's how you can recognize every virus. And we could even make a virus that had never existed, and you could still respond to it. So your body is an amazing, amazing information system probably much more complicated, definitely more complicated than any computer you have in your house, the information in your immune system. So that's why it's like that. The next slide. So wondering, and this is what you guys are talking about, wonder, this is what scientists do all the time. So I just wondered, well, how many does a person have? And if I have a lot and you have a lot, how many do we share? So are we all completely unique in our immune system, or do we share things? And that might help us learn why there's variability when you respond and I respond differently. We might be able to understand that's in the different parts. But when we're all able to handle some threat that comes into our body, maybe that's the shared parts. And just wondering how many, and does it matter gender, and what if you were born in Africa, and what if your other genetics are different? So we're trying to just explore that and say, what does it look like? So the next slide, the problem is the number that is inside your body is more blood cells, more white blood cells than there are stars in the galaxy. And you have this perception when you look up, and if you've ever been to a really dark place in a country that doesn't have light pollution, you look up, it's just an enormous, overwhelming experience to see all the stars. But your eye can only see about 9,500 stars, but there's millions of stars beyond that that you can't see. So even your impression by looking is just a tiny little piece of the stars that are out there. And this makes you feel very small in many ways. But what I'm telling you is the number of cells inside your body that are all different is more than that. You have a universe inside you that's more complicated than the stars in the sky. So I find that very empowering to think the amazing complexity inside, and I just like to go inside there and look around and see what, how complicated and beautiful it really is. So we've been doing that. And the next slide, if you study a person's immune system, we've taken volunteers in Nashville, and this is an example of one person who is actually a friend of mine. I've known this person a long time and gives a lot of blood, volunteers a lot of studies. And he or she gave us a large blood sample, and we sequenced, I think, 4 billion sequences from this person's blood, and this is a representation of that. And we can see all of the genes there, and this is just at one time point, and it's just in one sample. We didn't wait an hour later and do it again. We're actually going to do that, look every hour of the day and every day of the week and that sort of thing to see how stable it is. But this is an enormous, enormous information system and complexity that, I think what I'd like you to do, invite you to do, that I'm showing you a little window into the world of things that we see, is to think, what does that mean to you? Like, first of all, what do you think about your body? We all have thoughts about our body, about body image things and health and wellness or vulnerability and that sort of thing. So I would hope that you would be encouraged to understand the enormous complexity that you have in your body, and at any one time, the circulation of the system gives you capabilities to deal with anything that would come at you, basically. But also, there's sort of another dimension of it. When you see complexity, philosophers over the millennia have seen the stars. I'm showing you a system that's even bigger and more complex than stars. What does that mean to you to see this in nature? And so, you could just sort of catalog the way people have thought about this. There are materialists who say all that exists is material and it moving. So is that the way that you see nature and trees in your body? I think most philosophers have sort of grappled with another realm. Is there another realm? So is there, so Plato's Republic, you remember in the seventh book there, the allegory of the cave, in which all humanity is chained to a wall, and behind us there's a fire, and people are doing shadow puppets on the wall. And Socrates and Plato were basically making the point that this world is only a shadow of another world that is the real reality. So that was a Greek take on it. There's pantheistic traditions where you say the stuff is sacred, but they are the same. So material and sacred world is identical, and so there's no force outside of that. They are the same. You have the historical religious traditions which say there is a creator who made the materials, and the material world is a glory of that creator. So I just invite you to think about your body. You're with your body all the time, and this level of complexity is inside you, and just try to understand what it means. And I mean, my own experience is just to stand in awe of this. I think it's overwhelming to me, the beauty and complexity of it. So I'll just show you at the end how we actually do this, because I think it's interesting how people help us. In the next slide, we put people, this is over at Vanderbilt, we put people in a bed, and I've done this before. We put a needle in one arm and one in the other, and you sit there for 4 hours, which actually is pleasant for someone like me because I didn't have my cell phone and just had a warm nap. But we essentially put all the blood 5 or 6 times through a filter, and we pull out 40 billion white blood cells from a person. This particular person is a hero of mine. He's an Ebola survivor who's a physician who took care of Ebola patients in Africa and came to Nashville. And we've studied Ebola and things like that. The next slide, this is what it looks like. We get a bag of all the white blood cells from a person's blood at one time, 40 billion-ish, and then we spent about $250,000 sequencing that bag to figure out what I just showed you, all the little sequences in there. Pretty complicated. And this is my members of my team. They spend 8 hours just putting these things in tubes so we can deal with it. On the next slide, so we have cells, and then we go backwards. We extract out the DNA or RNA chemically, and then we put it in these machines, and we have $1 million machines, and they run very expensive tests. So that's where the money comes in. And all we get is 4 letters. Your entire genome and the immunome, everything I'm talking about is just G, A, T, or C in different combinations. That's amazing. That's a language. And you think you can make the billions, trillions out of 4 letters. To me, that's still, I can't quite get my mind around it, even though I do this stuff. The next slide. So then when we start comparing people and their conditions, what if somebody has lupus and another person's apparently healthy, or if we give them a vaccine and they respond well to it? We're looking for patterns, and I think this is where we're getting at the 99% and 1%. What is your pattern? What is my pattern? Male and female, and what are the commonalities and differences? And these patterns are why we needed the big data revolution, because the computers that we had previously were not big enough for this kind of pattern looking. But now if you're somewhere on the web, they tell you what book you'll like and what you want to buy and who your friends are, because the data tools, artificial intelligence, are mining this sort of thing. So this is no longer a data set that can't be dealt with. We're benefiting from all that in science. It's sort of retrofitting science from business world is what's happening, and we want to take advantage of it. So I'm super excited that not only are we discovering and wondering and sharing with you the awe, just what is around us, and to just stop and appreciate that for a minute. But as a physician, I want to do something with that. I want to help people with that. So that's the next step. And so next slide, we want to use the immune system for good. And let me just give you an example of that. On the next slide, this is a woman, Michelle Barnes. She gave a TEDx talk at Boulder, and you can see her talk. It's an amazing woman. She went as a traveler to Uganda, went in the cave on the right. This is a Nat Geo photographer, Joel Sartori, took this photograph in the cave. She was looking at these amazing bats because she was on safari and enjoying the bats. There's 40,000 fruit bats flying in and out of this cave. And then she flew home to the Boulder area and almost died. And she ended up with Marburg virus infection, which is a deadly cousin of Ebola, and survived. And back to today's theme of resilience, the immune system is amazing because you can drop a deadly virus in her case, she was infected with a virus that kills 3/4 of people, and without any specific therapy, her body took care of it, survived, like nuclear war was going on inside, but now she's fine. And she's up on the TEDx stage talking about her desire to give back to the community. So she gave us blood after this, and we made antibodies from her blood using the kind of technologies I just talked about. And so what you're seeing in purple is the Marburg virus protein, and in yellow are 3 copies of an antibody we got from her. And a lot of her antibodies kill the virus very, very well. We work with a hot zone lab in Texas that has the real virus, and puts it together with her antibodies and it kills. So we're using that as a naturally occurring biological drug to help people. So the next slide, to do drug development, I mean, people have opinions about whether it's logical or ethical to do animal experiments, but you cannot get a drug licensed in the United States without going through animals. So we did small animals and primate studies, and this drug, in red, the animals die if they're not treated, and all the animals survive if they're treated with a drug from a shell's body, an antibody. So there were a lot of press releases about this. On the next slide, the U.S. government invested $30 million of your tax money to start developing this drug, and this is sort of a structure of it. And this spring, we had a colleague who accidentally stuck himself in a BSL-4 lab with Marburg, which, again, is almost universally fatal, and we were able to treat him. And like right now, there's an outbreak of Marburg in Africa, in Uganda and Kenya, so Doctors Without Borders has asked us for this drug to fly it in for compassionate use. So that's the kind of thing in which we're doing art projects and we're wondering and trying to discover just how diverse is your body, but then we're trying to turn and use that to make drugs. And we started with Michelle 3 years ago, and now we're already treating people. So I'm super excited that your natural immune system is an amazing system, and I hope you'll appreciate it and enjoy it. And every time you're ill, I love getting ill because I just feel like it's all going on inside there. And I think about all those cells moving around. I really do. I mean, I'm so thankful they're there. And be encouraged that we're trying to use this to treat cancer. You may have heard of immunotherapy and so on. So thank you for having us, and yeah.
Thank you, James. Thank you. That was super. How are we doing? Let's see, 1:45 How about?
I wanted to do one more thing. If I could
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
my last slide, probably.
Oh, yeah.
So I mentioned at the beginning, I'm just the cheerleader. This is my team at Vanderbilt. And I mentioned, what does it mean to you? We have people from all over the world, from, I think in the picture, from Iran, Sudan, Bangladesh, Pakistani. It's very interesting to have people from Pakistan and Bangladesh work directly together because, nuclear bombs are reported. And I think this is another experience we have in science, that it's a common language in which people from all over the world. And it's going on at Vanderbilt, it's going on in our group. And I think super enjoyed that piece of it, that people get to contribute to this no matter what their background. Yeah.
I remember from your TEDx you talking about, I don't remember the full details, but you talking about being a young doctor in Africa and why you got into vaccines and such with the little ones that were,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering if you can expound on that a little bit. You can let us know what happened.
What happened with that journey, or the child, or?
The child.
The child I was talking about died in my arms, and I had to, hand the child back to the mother. And the tribal group that we were working with, Kipsigis, usually when their children died, they went away quietly in the night. That was how they handled death. And this particular couple was from a different tribal group, and they were very demonstrative in their death. So we were in a tiny little 5x5 room, and their tradition is to wail and express emotion at the death of a child. And I was in the room with her, and the wailing just went on and on. I think this really pierced my heart. And I said, this is not just, really. This isn't, I don't want this to happen. This makes me angry. And so I think I wanted to do something about that and use my person and career about that. And I mean, oddly for this gathering, I've had my own, I'm operating generally, personally, out of a faith-based milieu. So, for me, that gets wrapped into it too. But I think the immediate thing was just to hold the child and hand back to the mother and say, just as a human being, I don't want this to happen. And it's not just me. I'm showing you all these people are pulling together. So I want to be part of a movement that changes the world. So that's what's happened. So I wanted to work in Africa, but now I end up up working at Vanderbilt, and my wife, who's a physician, goes to Africa and Haiti and various places to do the compassion piece of it, and I'm trying to do the, what I just told you. Yeah.
One quick one, real quick.
You're talking to me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Fast.
You had where you're comparing the two patterns, two different people in the circle.
Yeah.
Are you at the point where you can look at that and say, match it up to what you know about the person, like, well, that person has lupus, that's why their pattern looks that way, or like, what can you really glean from those comparisons?
Yeah, we're not ready to do that. We think we need about 1,000 people to do that, and we've only done about 6 people. So it's $250,000 per person, so I'm out raising money. So if any of you are billionaires and would like to write us approximately $100 million check, then see me in the back. But it's a good point. We're not there, but we can see a day when this type of test could be able to tell you more about your experiences and your potential. So thanks you so much.
Thank you, James. That was super. Okay, it's that time in our service when we have a little bit of quiet. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what this moment has come to mean for me over the years. So the way we do this event every month was conceived by Sanderson Jones and Pippa Evans in London. And a lot of us got to meet them when they came in 2013 for the launch. They're super people. And they have a great view on life. So, and in February, we had a chance to see Sanderson again. He came back when Morgan Spurlock wanted to come with his television team to do a program about about religious experience in America. And Morgan wrapped up his week with us. He came to Sunday Assembly and he hosted. He did a great job too, it's bang up. So, but at that second assembly in February, we learned something remarkable about Sanderson. I've been thinking a lot this past month or two, what makes people resilient? And the data seems to suggest, a lot of it has to do with the view you take, not so much what happens to you, but the view you take of what happens, and your takeaway or your approach to life. And Sanderson, in February when he visited, he told the story of that he had been born into a tight family in Scotland. He had a loving mother. He had a younger sibling. When he was 10, his mother was diagnosed with cancer, and she rapidly died. And he went through adolescence being pretty angry about that. When he reached his 20s, though, he began thinking a lot. He started engaging in mindfulness, in meditation. And when he did, he started thinking, when I think about that, I can remember her face. And I can remember my mother, and I remember her love for me. And things about her came back to him, and he began to think, not, oh man, I'm 20 and my mother died when I was 10. He began thinking, isn't it great that I had her for 10 years? And so it was Sanderson who put into our service a moment of mindfulness. There's a lot of the world that we can't change, but we can think about, we can be mindful of where we are, acknowledge what's wrong with where we are, and maybe try to be centered in a place where we do have some sense of empowerment. So I'm going to ask you to invite you to join me in a minute of mindfulness, sort of as a placeholder in our lives, to remind us to take this with us when we leave. Try to engage in mindfulness. Let me ask you to really think really deeply for your next 3 deep breaths. Okay, and I'd like you to think of yourself in some place that is reasonably comfortable and dry, maybe something like this room,
Or if not this, some other favorite place where you can feel comfortable and safe. And I want you, in your imagination, I want you to imagine some of your favorite people being there with you. Maybe in the background, not the foreground so much, in the background, you know, we're all music lovers here, so maybe think of some of your favorite musicians. Maybe you know, you want some quiet, so maybe not you two, but you know, someone with a cool vibe. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Band, do we have a number now?
I think so, at the choir.
Awesome.
It's a choral number.
Wow. Choral number. Awesome. So let's give up the hands for the tonalities, man. Woo!
We'll get it back.
I want you guys to feel free to stand up and move around. This one's gonna be a lot of fun, okay?
Ready?
You guys ready?
Yeah.
One, two, three.
Good loving. Good loving. Good loving. Good loving.
I was feeling so bad. Asked my family doctor just what I had. I said, Doctor, Mr. MD, can you tell me what's ailing me? He said, yeah. Yes, indeed. All I really need.
Good loving.
Give me that good loving.
Good loving.
All I need is loving.
Good loving.
Good loving, baby.
Good loving.
Honey, please squeeze me tight. Now don't you want your baby to feel alright?
Feel alright.
I said, baby, it's for sure. I got the fever, yeah. You got the cure.
Got the cure.
Everybody, yeah. Yes, indeed. All I really need.
Good loving.
Come on, give me good loving.
Good loving.
All I need is loving.
Good loving.
Your good loving.
Melody. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So once a month, some very brave and wonderful member agrees to talk to us about some decision they've had to make in life. Not that any of us have to make any big decisions, right? And in this section we call Try My Best. It's become one of the most popular parts of service, and I want you to give it up for Ashley Hall. Yeah. Who's going to come talk to us about trying her best.
I'm going to try and get through this entire talk without looking a single one of you in the eye. That's going to be... I'll just look at you. Hi. Okay. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. All right, so I wrote this thing out, and we'll see how it goes. I was always interested in statistics about people being more resilient with religion in their lives. Back when I was clinging to belief by the skin of my fingers, this was one of the pieces of evidence I looked to so I could justify my continued belief in something supernatural despite all the reasons not to. Of course, now that I'm past that, and my fingers are intact, kind of, I've realized that those statistics are the way they are for a reason. It's about the community. It's about people. It's about feeling your existence is noticed and that it matters. Of course, most of us in this room know these communities come with massive strings attached, and you pretty much have to toe the line and blend in or work toward continued maintenance. I wrote this on the train, by the way, so that it's going to sound like it was written on the train. The false reality in order to be part of the community. Even the most progressive churches do this, albeit in less abusive ways. And as you can imagine, this does not bode well for those independent spirits like myself. I had always learned to blend in and copy what others were doing and suppress all that made me weird or different or smart. And when you're on the spectrum like me, there are a lot of those things to suppress. Once I stopped going to church, I pretty much accepted there was no place for me and that any community I joined would be an exhausting slog of me trying to play act that I was like everyone else. You can't really blame me, since this was what I had to do in my family, my Christian school, my Christian college, and every Christian church I ever attended. And since I couldn't make it in the safe places, I knew that I'd never be able to make it in the evil secular places. Oh, how wrong I was. After admitting to myself I was an atheist, I sought out like-minded people and finally found the community I have been longing for my entire life in February 2016. And that hooked me up with other like-minded people who opened my mind more than I ever thought possible. Then Trump got elected. And we all know that all of our worries about that are completely unfounded, so that's okay. And no amount of community was taking away my lifelong companion of crippling anxiety. So after about a week of crying, I decided to go for a promotion in the most liberal place I could find, Portland, Oregon, and I got it. And some of you remember my last assembly here, and I was bawling my eyes out. I'd moved around a few times in my life. Despite making friends, I'd not really thought of anything of it, but this time felt different. It didn't help that I happened to run into a guy at McKay's that I clicked with immediately a week before I was leaving. Who's sitting right there. And he liked me enough to shop for cat wine as a going-away present. However, despite this new hesitation, I still went to Oregon. Well, to put it mildly, my promotion did not last long. The election, being in a new place, the sudden disappearance of my support system had more of an effect on me than I thought it would have. Despite going 3 weeks without a day off and training as much as I possibly could, I did not do a good job. And I started being a regular old crisis counselor again. This meant that I was back to the unpredictable schedule, which meant that meeting people was made much harder. Although I did meet quite a few people, the connection was not made and I got incredibly depressed. Not only that, but my salary got cut, and despite a promise that it wouldn't, and I had to spend pretty much all of my off hours driving for Lyft and Uber in order to make up the difference and afford my rent. Along with all the previous difficulties I've mentioned, this did not make a good combination. Long story short, I lost my job. My entire reason for moving there was gone. I had no idea what to do. But I did know one thing. My lease was up, and I wanted to go home. Not Florida, where I grew up, but the first place I felt at home. Right here in conservative Christian Nashville. You guys are gonna make me cry. I'm gonna go over. Okay, this is gonna go on really long if I start crying, you guys. You know that, right? I realized that the days of me being an island were over. I sent a message to my Nashville friends, both inside and outside of South Sunday Assembly, to help getting back, and they came through. I had a place to stay, I had job leads, I had money in my PayPal account, and I had a date. And I road trip back to Nashville completely on donations from my secular friends, many of whom are in this room. And not only that, but I also got empathy, a shoulder to cry on, and even better, no platitudes about how this happened for a reason. It didn't. This was an adventure on a failed bet, but it also allowed me to see new places, new people, but it ultimately didn't work out. There might not have been a cosmic reason for what I went through, but I was able to make it into a meaningful moment in my life nonetheless. And it taught me that I actually do need people. I have internal resilience, of course, but there's only so far that can get you. I need people, and that's okay.
Thank you, Ashley. And need I say, we love you. We are so glad to have you back. Yeah, you're amazing. So, all right. So I'd like to recognize. Right now, we're gonna make a collection, and I'd like to recognize Lori Nolan to come talk to us a little bit about why we need to make a collection, and then I'll have some announcements.
Hello. So this is month 3 of my test to see how much the regulars remember. Wherever 2 or more are gathered, there are expenses. You're getting it. You're getting it. So we have things like rent. We have insurance. We have rent for this venue, rent for the places that we go to in the parks and things. We have coffee in the back. Doesn't come free. We have lovely sound equipment so that the videos that we post that a lot of people who cannot make it here can see and also hear what's going on. If you enjoy what we're doing and you want to support us, there's a couple ways to do that. One is to contribute to the hat. If you would just grab one, pass it around towards the back. You can make a one-time donation there. We also have ability for you to donate online. I do have my little computer pad thing in the back. If you want to do that here today, that's great. I'll leave it up for a while in the back. You can also sign up on Amazon.com through their Smile Amazon program and designate Sunday Assembly Nashville as your charity. And you may notice as the hat is being passed around, some of your neighbors may not be putting anything in, and they get a pass if they have a green name tag, because that means they're a sustaining donor. They said it, they forget it. And that is a huge, huge, huge help. Last month, we set the goal of getting 10 new sustaining members. We made it to 5. Thank you very much for the 5 new ones. That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's Thanksgiving month. Everybody's going to be really busy. But if you can, so I'm going to make a realistic goal. Let's try to do 5 more. So remind people if you're able to do that. And if you're not, there are so many other ways to give. One time, if you can, one of the ways I've done it in the past when my budget was like all over the place and I didn't know, I would set up a $5 a month recurring, just really low. I knew I could always do 5. And the months that I had a little more, I'd put a little more in the hat. That worked well. We also have people that contribute not through money, but they have time, they have talents, they give so much to this organization. We are entirely volunteer run. Several of them buy supplies, so everybody contributes, and everyone being here causes the community to be here that Ashley was just talking about. And her story is close to my heart too, having found my heart here. For those who don't know, I came originally from Sunday Assembly Los Angeles. I joined for very similar reasons to Ashley, found a community, and now I live here. So, yay! Yes! So thank you very much for all that you contribute by being here and monetarily if you can.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. Thank you for moving from LA. All right, so there are some announcements I want to let you know about, and right up, they're printed in your bulletin, but right up top, I want you to keep in mind we have a really awesome event coming up. First time ever in Nashville. So, some good ideas. They first came out of London. So London, a few years ago, they decided, what if we got together and everybody could sing happy seasonal songs like, I'll Be Home for Christmas and, I don't know, trim the Christmas tree, whatever, jingle bells, whatever, because, it'd be fun to get together with friends and sing with people and celebrate December and, get your mind off of shopping for a change. So they invented an event called You'll Rock in London, and they sold tickets to support Sunday Assembly London, and it sold out. The entire theater sold out. And why not? Because it's a lot of fun, right? So our music team here in Nashville has decided, you know what? We can do one better. We can have it here in Nashville, but of course, we're going to put the Nashville stamp on it. It's Yule. It's rock. Yule, y'all. Yule, y'all. Thank you. And I want you to start thinking about getting tickets. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be at the Unity. We've hired the space at Unity Church out on Franklin Road. A number of you may remember that as the venue for NanoCon this past March. And you can get tickets if you go to tinyurl.com/Yule, y'all. No apostrophe. All right, so look for it there. I'm also betting that you can find it by Googling Yule, y'all, Nashville. Not yet. Oh, it's going to turn up pretty soon, with.
There'll be a link on the meetup event too.
And we'll share it on Facebook and everything.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. And the tattoo. The choir call out. You heard the tonalities are amazing. They have a lot of fun. And to participate, thank you, Jen, for helping to make that happen.
So we are going to participate in Yule, y'all. The tonalities are. Oh, sorry. She can project.
Yeah, I don't really need the mic, but it's probably a good idea, just in case. So here's what's going to happen. Every Wednesday between now and Yule, y'all, except for the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we are going to have rehearsals. Anyone is welcome to join us. If you cannot make a Wednesday rehearsal, please communicate with me if you still want to be a part of the choir, because guess what? We can have rehearsals that are not on a Wednesday and incorporate you into the choir as we go, okay? The only thing I ask is that you are there for at least 2 rehearsals, and it's gonna be super simple. For those of you who remember last year when Stephen got a bunch of people together to sing for the choir, we are doing his winter solstice song again this year. So that's a song that you're sort of already familiar with, and we're definitely looking for people who may not be a part of the band as a regular basis. You probably will still be encouraged to purchase a ticket to Yule, y'all, but it's a fundraiser, please. We're trying to make it to where Sunday Assembly Nashville not only is around for more, but can do more out in the community, including maybe actually going around and singing to other people, because I know y'all are tired of hearing my voice, so.
Thank you, Jen. That'd be awesome. Okay, and then we also coming up, we have Bowling with the Heathens out in Donaldson Bowling Center. That is sponsored by our good friend. Brian, where's Brian? Hi, Brian. Okay. They're still on their honeymoon. And then we big camping extravaganza coming up with bonfire. So if you're into an overnight camping, awesome, and that'd be November 17. If you're not up for camping, be sure to come Saturday all the same. Sunday Assembly is having a big bonfire. We'll have lots of s'mores, we'll have hot cocoa, and good chance to camp out and sing songs around the campfire. And it's a great way to get together and enjoy friends. So that's that's November 17, later this month, at Long Hunter State Park. So it's just outside, it's in Davidson County, real close. Long Hunter State Park. Then we have Middle Ground Potluck coming up. It's a small group. Many of you know it. It's at Steve and Georgia's house. Great chance to get together and share food and conversation. And for the second year in a row, I believe, we have Thanksgiving at the Cooks. Our own awesome Melissa and Steve are hosting Thanksgiving to get together. So, and Doug and I took the girls last year. It was wonderful to be there, and we felt like we were with family. We were with family. See, we got Beer in the Books coming up, also at the Cooks, and that's November 26th. We've got the Sunday Assembly Nashville Holiday Party at Nicole and Teresa's house is coming up. Awesome, thank you, ladies.
We really want a lot of people.
Last year we had a lot of fun.
It was a lot.
It was awesome.
I can assure you, if it's at Teresa and Nicole's, it's going to be a blast. And that's December 2, Saturday, December 2, 4 o'clock. Right, ladies? Okay. And we got, there's going to be a premiere of an interesting film that may be of interest to a lot of people here at Sunday Assembly. It's called Losing Our Religion. It's a national premiere. It's going to be at the Metro Police Precinct West. That's on December 3 at 1 p.m. So and I understand Patrick is going to be conversation about the film afterward, yeah, so people can share their thoughts. Help Often is an amazing group committee here. It's headed up by Jeannie Buitt, who's just awesome, and it engages in conceiving and implementing projects where we can engage in community service. It has a monthly meeting, and the next one is December 9, so it happens just before this event. So it'll be the second Sunday of December, just before, like at 10 a.m., so before our 11 o'clock service. And so, yeah, that's good. So, yeah, oh, more announcement, one more.
Help Often met this morning, and we talked about what we would do for December. So we decided to do a collection of unwrapped new toys for Toys for Tots that Andrew will keep to a donation center. So if all of you bring something next month, that would be great.
Okay, Toys for Tots, and that's December 9. Bring them December 9. Great. They should be unwrapped, I take it? Yes. Yeah, unwrapped. And new, yeah. Terrific, all right. Okay, well, these last several weeks since I was hosting, I've been thinking a lot about resilience. It was on my mind a lot. I thought about resilience. And so I thought, well, gosh, you have to be a pretty strong person to make it through life. I started looking at quotes about resilience, and one of them was Ernest Hemingway, and he was very cheerful. He said, "Life breaks everybody." And then when you grow back, sometimes you're strongest in that place. And, but, the more I thought about resilience, I thought more I thought, it's really depressing to think about resilience, because basically it's about living our lives, right? I mean, who among us hasn't? We've all been in places in our lives, and we know people. I mean, I'm thinking especially of the massacre 2 weeks ago in Southern Heights, Texas. There's so much pointless loss of life, and we're left in a position of feeling relatively helpless. That I don't know about you, but I feel like we just don't have the political system in place to respond. We don't have an immune system built into our American politics polity to respond to this kind of a crisis. And I thought about, so I was thinking a lot about political resilience, and that wasn't very encouraging. And I was thinking about the hurricanes and global warming, and I thought, well, there's not much I can personally do about that, or any one of us, And so it was just kind of depressing. And one thing, and I thought about loss. Many of you know, I hosted this time last year. It was just after both my parents had died earlier in the year. My dad in April, and my mother in August. And so many of you have gone through much greater loss than that, than I. So much greater personal loss. And yet, that was a really hard year, you know? I didn't feel stronger, you know? How many of you felt stronger after you went through a terrible crisis, you know? Not me, not me. I was just glad to get through it and past it. And one thing that I really thought a lot about was that I was glad to be here, because I came of age in the early 80s. And when I was in college, I was in New York City. And I'd gone away for school from here. And when I was 22, I came out in January. And in February, I got my subscription of the New York Times and opened the paper, and it said, "Mystery disease identified among gay men." And I was like, oh, whoa, this is not what it wasn't in my game plan. And a couple of years after I graduated, I was enjoying life, but pretty soon I heard that my friend Stuart, who was actually a year behind me in college, had succumbed to AIDS. And pretty soon I knew a whole lot of people who were dying. And thinking of Richard and Matthew and Mark. I didn't intend the gospel reference, but it's just the culture we live in, okay? But so I just felt really strongly as I was preparing for today that, it just doesn't resonate with me. I'm wondering, am I the only one? It just doesn't resonate with me that resilience is all about making us stronger. Because that was just a really messed up time. And I'm just glad that through science, we've arrived at a place where I don't have to worry so much about me or my friends dying so rapidly of a disease that we don't understand. Instead, through inquiry and scientific effort and work by people like James Crow, we know a lot more about HIV, and it's become a manageable disease. But I don't feel like it's made me personally stronger to have lived through that experience. I don't feel like it's made necessarily the gay community stronger. But we have lived through it. We have survived. We've pushed through. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about what my philosophy about why I think we managed to push through. So if it's not, so I did some web research and trying to figure out, well, what makes people resilient? Why might the gay community have pushed through and survived the AIDS crisis until we had, triple therapy and to help us cope with this crisis? And so I do some research, and oh man, you wouldn't believe what I found. It was terrible. Can you read that? 20 traits of resilient people. 20 traits. I lose my train of concentration after 3 bullets, okay? So, I cannot do 20 traits. So in other words, it's just really complicated. But the kind of the nub of it maybe comes down to the attitude we bring to the bad stuff that does happen to us. Recognizing that it doesn't necessarily make us stronger, but if you're gonna, if you fall 7 times, you gotta get up 8, You have to keep pushing through. You don't necessarily get better at getting up, but you just gotta do it anyway. So there was one quote that did kind of resonate with me in my experience. And I thought, oh, this would be great. And then, that quote was that I'm gonna go ahead and share it, that you don't wait until the world is perfect to start enjoying life. And then my friend Josh Brown came in and said, that's Joyce Meyer. Oh, okay. So I didn't want to put a whole room full of people in mind of endless PBS programming with self-help from people who were making a good buck off it. So I pushed through. And it put me in mind of some more closer to home, some wisdom that's been closer to home to me and my husband. Some of you may know that we have 7-year-old girls, and once a week or so, we like to have family movie night. And so Mary recently, my little girl Mary just recently asked, Daddy, how come every time we have family movie night, it's a musical? And I said, my dear, point of privilege. You have 2 fathers with fabulous taste. And so, and so recently we were wanting the girls to be sure to see the film version of Fiddler on the Roof, because we want to take them to the stage production, because it changed my life. So, and I want them to have the same experience. So and we all remember the story of Fiddler on the Roof, right? I mean, it's about very poor people living in mud in little villages in the Greater Pale of Russia. And they're barely tolerated, and they're constantly persecuted, and all they have is each other. And their traditions and their core beliefs and values. And at the end of the story, and throughout this, and there's a metaphor for this of the Fiddler on the Roof, for their attitude toward life, that in the midst of all this mud and all this poverty and worrying about the next pogrom, you might say to your kid, remember to enjoy life, remember to make music, but do it carefully, like the Fiddler on the Roof. And at the end of the story, the Tsar in his wisdom issues an edict that all the Jews and all the poor shtetls have to clear out. And as all these poor huddle messes are going through the main street of the town, we hear their stories about where they're going. And we, the audience, were kind of like gods sitting there, because we hear their stories about where they're going from the perspective of people who know the future. And one says, oh, I'm going to Chicago. And we say, yes, oh, great. And another is going to New York, yes. And a third is going to Krakow. But we know the future. We see what's happening, and we know that actually the ones who have been forced out, ironically, they're the lucky ones. That's their life. But Tevi, our hero in the story, when he leaves, he takes the Fiddler on the Roof with him. All the people, the screenwriters, the people who wrote the music, all the people who wrote the screenplay, they took the Fiddler on the Roof with them, and that tradition of looking for a moment to relax, a moment not to deny the realities of what's really happening in the world, but at least to celebrate what we do have together. So, point of privilege, since I don't want to make everyone think about Joyce Meyer and her self-promoting films, let me instead put you in mind of another musical, a great favorite of mine, and something that I think about when I come to Sunday Assembly. It was the very wise Mame who said, life is a feast, and most of the poor bastards are starving themselves to death. And that's how I feel. I feel like about Sunday Assembly, that it's great because it is a feast, and you're willing to come here and share the feast of life with us and celebrate what we do, our relationships, and celebrate being alive. As far as we know, the only material part of the universe that is aware of our existence. So with that, I want to wish you a happy Sunday, and thank you for coming today. And I will look for you again at the December 9. December 10. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, David. Everybody give it up for Mr. David Lyle. Great host today. While we're getting the band set up, do not forget to get your tickets for Yule Y'all. They will go quick, and there's only enough seating for 300 or so of you all. We have lunch coming up after this, and it's not in the thing, or is it in the Amerigo at lunch afterwards? But while we're doing it, James, the videos that you all see, James Arledge puts those together. He comes up with the concept. He takes the time to build and develop them, and it's an amazingly fun resource. So please give him a hand. Jordan and Zoe in the back did an amazing job considering all the stuff they had to challenge on sound this week. Give them a hand. Thank you always for Jeremy for taking care of lyrics. And then we've got Steven, Adam, Felicia, Deb, Georgia, James, we've got Ray, Taylor, Chris Shannon on drums, and I said Steven already, and there's other people here. Did I forget anybody? Thank you all for coming. We're going to do a couple more songs, and then we're going to go to lunch. We're gonna do another doctor medicine song.
Medically themed.
Themed, yes. All very well researched.
The best of science.
Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang.
Ah ah ting tang, walla walla bing bang.
Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. I told the witch doctor I was in love with you. I told the witch doctor I was in love with you. And then the witch doctor, he told me what to do. He told me, ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. I told the witch doctor you didn't love me true. I told the witch doctor you didn't love me nice. And then the witch doctor, he gave me this advice. He told me, ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. You've been keeping love from me just like you were a miser. I'll admit I wasn't very smart, but I went out and found myself a man who's so much wiser, and he told me the way to win your heart. My friend the witch doctor, he told me what to say. My friend the witch doctor, he told me what to do. I know that you'll be mine if I say this to you. Ooh ee